Hi everybody! Today I'm installing the SCAD tank monitors. Now I'm going to be putting these on our Blackwater tanks. We have 3 of them, we have 3 heads, and it's a bit of a process to put these things in, but I've got high hopes for them. Pretty much what's involved is I need to add the sensors to the tanks, then run wire from the tanks all the way back to a control module. That's this little guy here, and then the control module is going to convert the signals into a typical resistive load. I think it's like 85 to 200 and something or other ohms. From there, we can run it into our Cerbo GX. I've got to get the tank sensors installed. I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I've already got some of the wire run, and then we'll hook up to the converter module here, the sensor converter module, and take the output and see where we are. The kit consists of 3 sensors here. These are these guys here, and our converter module and our 2 instructions. Now these sensors are basically a long sort of foil strip, 2 of them that you have to put on each side of the tank, and then this sensor guy and these pads. So the little pads go on the metal bit here, and then you have this guy in between, and that's how it monitors. It's going to send a signal through the tank. These are externally mounted, so in theory it shouldn't be quite as susceptible to crap in the tank. I'm going to take you down into one of the potties there, and we'll go ahead and install our sensor on the tank. I'll show you how that's done. This is our Blackwater tank here. It's just a big plastic tank, and that's really what they recommend for this system. So my plan is to attach our silver metal strips here on each side, the foil strips. Then we'll put our little sensors over the top of it, and then we'll put the control module up here, and we'll tie into our wiring. So this wiring is going to service both this tank and the other tank for the other bathroom. It's just on the other side of this wall. So that's going to be very helpful. 1 wire, 6 conductors. You need 3 wires for each one of the sensors. So not the end of the world, but just a decent amount of wire. It's been pulled all the way through to the other side of the boat at this point. We have our foil strip and our sensor doodles. So I'm going to put the sensor doodles away for now. It's 1 long continuous strip because they don't know how you're going to be using this. That makes sense. And what we're going to do is we are going to put a sensor strip all the way, they said 1 inch from the top to 1 inch from the bottom. But before I attach those strips, I'm going to clean everything up really well with some isopropyl alcohol, make sure these surfaces are super clean. And yep, they were a little dirty, not too bad though. And looking at our manual here, they have a nice little table as far as how you're going to set this up. Depends on kind of how tall your tank is. Ours is well over 24 inches, so we're good. We're all the way at the right side of this little table here. But if your tanks are really pretty squatty, or 10 inches or less, then you just double up the film is what you do on that. So no big deal, we don't have to do that. This is going to be us over here on this side. We just need to keep a 1/2 inch gap between the top and the bottom, and this gap between the 2 of them is given up here by 2.5 to 3. All right, well, we're all clean. Next step is just to install our silver tape. All right, there's our 2 strips installed. They look nice. Our next step is going to be to install the 2 pickups and our little sensor converter module guy. But first, we need to clean this with alcohol again to make sure these guys stick. Looking at the instruction again, they show these guys mounted pretty close to the top here. And then our little sensor guy next to it, just so that, you know, there's no strain on any of these.
If you like this content, consider subscribing to our channel. If you want real-time updates and benefits, consider another level and become a patron. It really helps us out.
We've got our sensors installed. I think we're all good here. I'm going to wire up these wires. I've got You can check this out here. I've got this split up into 2 groups of 3 here. We've got a red, white, and black, and then green, orange, and yellow. So I'm just going to kind of map these across. These will be easy. The other ones I'll map across and make a note of them. And once again, the other sensor, the other tank here is just literally right back there. It's right on the other side in there, right around the corner. So that's going to make it really easy to go ahead and install the other sensor and then get this wire hooked up. Once I've got all that done, I'm going to then head to the nav station and install our little box that pulls all of this together and gives us our resistive output. This is our nav desk. This is where I've had all 9 of those wires routed into. So let me go ahead and pull off this cover and we can check it out. Now I know it's a bit of a rat's nest in here for sure, but let me show you where the wiring is. This is the wiring for the SCAD devices here. So you can see over here, we've got our tank input sensors here. The 4th one is not being used and it's jumpered. So these are the 3 that we're using. This is the first one is the starboard aft, then starboard forward, and then port forward. So these are where all of our wires came through. It was fun pulling all this through the boat. On the left side here are the resistive outputs. Now they output the standard US spec, and those outputs from here are actually going to our servo, which is in the port engine bay. So I had to route these 2 sets of wires all the way out there. Power for the unit here is coming from our little power junction box here that I installed a while ago. Works really well. So the nice thing about Cerbo is that they have 4 tank inputs, resistive inputs, and you can control them and program them simply from the display. It's one of the reasons I really like Victron as an infrastructure, and we have so much Victron on the system and we have a Cerbo controlling everything, that all I had to do, but it was a bit of a bummer, was to run wiring all the way from here down around the back there, all the way across to here, then all the way through, and then behind the fridges down there. Once I was behind the refrigerators, I had to go all the way under and tunnel through. They have some tubes under there and go all the way down to the engine bay. I don't want to get into too much of the specifics of running wire through a boat because it's so specific to everyone's boat, but I do want to show you one of my most favorite tools for doing it. And that's this guy. This is my Mouser tape. It's a product by Klein, and it kind of looks a little weird, right? One thing you notice right off the bat, one, it's plastic, so therefore it is non-conductive. I love that about this. And the second thing is, it literally glows in the dark. So let me show you how amazing that is. So say you've got a dark area down in there that's hard to see, and you want to run a Mouser through there. It's really hard to see, but check this out. Look at this guy. Look how it glows. Isn't that something? So when you've got it coming out of some area up there, and you just see it coming across like this, it's glowing, and it's so much easier to see it. It's really pretty amazing. I love this thing. And I've got, electrical stuff here. Last thing I want is something conductive, going across. These are all grounds, but still, I mean, if there's any chance that this thing is metal and it could short something out, that would be so bad. But I really like this thing because I love that glow in the dark bit. It's the coolest thing since sliced bread. So if you have to run a bunch of wire through your boat, through really dark areas, 100% get one of these Klein glow in the dark Mouser tape things. These things are amazing. And if you've got it in an area and you think you should be able to see it, but you can't, just shine a really bright light in there. It'll recharge it, and then just turn the light off and you'll see it in there glowing green. It's pretty awesome. I love this thing. And for those runs, all I needed was 18 gauge 2 conductor wire, so that worked really well. I just used 2 runs of that. We have 3 signals and 1 ground, so kind of went like that. So that's what I did with this. The one in the back there is the ground, and then these guys are the 3 signals. I just kept my wits about me and made sure I didn't get off kilter as far as who was on first and what's on second. Hooking up to the Cerbo down in the engine bay was really simple as well. They give you a connector for it. You just push the wires in. They're 4 across the top, and then their grounds below. And so it was just a matter of really keeping the wires straight so that I knew that I matched number 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3. So it was number 1 is the starboard aft, 2 is starboard forward, 3 is the port forward. So it worked out really well, and it was easy enough to program. Let me show you what it looks like on the Cerbo GX display. This is our Cerbo GX display. I have the GUI mods running on this, on the old version of the software. I really like this. It gives me a lot more information. We just have to click on the center there and hit menu. So the first thing you have to do on all of this is go up to settings. GUI mods put settings at the top. Normally settings is all the way at the bottom. So we'll go into settings, and then we scroll down to I/O, and then go to our analog inputs, and then we have to turn on tank level input 1, 2, and 3. Since we are not using number 4, we leave it off, and the rest of the temperature inputs I'm not using either. So once those are on, you can go back to, get out of settings actually, and go back to the device list here, and go down and you'll find them. So I've already renamed ours. So I have a port poo, and I have a starboard forward poo and a starboard aft poo, and we've already got values on them, which is kind of neat. But you can go into any one of these and you can check it out. So the status is okay, we're receiving information from it. The level's at 40%, remaining is 5 gallons. You can go into setup and set the capacity, and this is important. So this is the 30 to 240 ohms. That's the US standard. Since these sensors are really more like 85 ohms to 240 ohms, under standard, you really want to select custom and then set the actual values when empty and when full. I set it to be a blackwater sewage fluid type and gallons, and the total of those tanks I think is about 12 gallons. All right, great. So then out of that, we can also go into device, and in device, you can kind of check to see what's going on. This is the connection stuff, blah, blah, blah. But here's the name, and you can tap on that and change the name if you want to. You just tap on that and tap it again, and it brings back the keyboard, and you can go through and rename this. So that's great. So now we see it here, but do we see it on the main pages as well? So let's see, we'll go back to that. Okay, so if I go this way, twice actually, here are all the tank levels. So we have fuel tanks. So we just filled up with gas, so we're totally full on our fuel tanks. Our water's about half or so, down a little bit, 44%, and tells us what we've got left over, 81 gallons out of 185. And then over here we've got our 3 poo tanks. So this is pretty sweet. We got port poo, which is completely empty at this point, and this is the starboard forward and starboard aft. Now you may be wondering, how do these tanks know what full is and empty is? The system has to sort of calibrate itself, and it will self-calibrate. Do you remember how I showed you that number 4 isn't being used and there's a wire across it jumpering it? That's what you would use to sort of reset the whole system. So if they ever get out of whack, you could always just jumper those 2 across and it will reset. And then it goes into this auto calibration. So yesterday we got a full pump out after I got this thing installed, which was actually pretty sweet. So it was running during that time and we got a full pump out. So it knows where the 0 is for the tanks, and all 3 of them registered as 0. And now that we've been using them a little bit, they're filling up. But I don't think it knows exactly where the top of the tank is just yet. And once it gets to the top, and the only way to really know is it goes out the vent, which is a bummer and kind of overflows a little bit. That's the only way you really know the tank is full. It will see that as a max value, or at least an endpoint value. You can actually see the resistance value in your setup as well on the Cerbo, so that's pretty sweet. Oh, and if there was a problem with, it seems to always get to the top, 98, 95%, and it's always overflowing, you can then adjust the top and bottom resistance levels inside the Cerbo GX. That will make it really easy to sort of calibrate this thing after the SCAD device does its complete calibration of the system as well. Seems to be working really well. The only other issue I can think of is, and I'm going to show you this next, is the possibility that the tanks have a lot of buildup in them, a lot of crap in them, and ours were kind of bad. I can show you one that looks okay, and I can show you one that does not look okay. What I've used in the 2 starboard tanks is this stuff. So it's Happy Campers Extreme. It just takes 1/3 of it for each one of our tanks. So one of these will do all 3 tanks. The only tank I haven't done is the port forward. The 2 starboard tanks I've done. The best way to do this is really while you're on passage or something when the boat is sloshing all over the place. Although today's kind of working. It's a little rough here, even in the marina. So I'm going to show you my process of using this stuff and cleaning out the port forward tank. We're back here in the aft starboard head, and I'll show you how these tanks look right now. I use a really bright light, and I put it up at the top here, and you can kind of see all that modeling? There we go. You can kind of see down. You can see this tank's not too bad. We've got light there, very little deposits here, some schmutz here for sure, not too bad. Sections here. Over on this side, it's a little worse though. It's definitely a little more intense. If I try to put this thing here and try to get it to shine through, you can kind of see it's not too bad though. I mean, I think it's definitely worse up at the top here. Just up there, it's a little hard to see. I've used the Happy Camper on this already, and it seemed to do a pretty good job, but my guess is that this cabin may not have been used all that much in the boat's history. I doubt seriously these tanks have ever been cleaned. So it might take a couple applications. I was gonna see how well the SCAD sensors do with the level of schmutz that's in here. And if they're working properly, which they seem to be so far, everything seems fine on them, all 3 of them actually, well, then maybe it's not as big of a concern as I was thinking it is. But just try to get the tanks as clean as possible. They'll also be less schmutzy and smelly and yucky, right? I'm using what I think is about a 3-gallon bucket here. The instructions say to use as hot a water as you can. It probably helps to dissolve it, but it also helps to have some warm water in that big poo tank as well. So what I'm going to do is I've already pulled hot water here, so we're going to have this running. It's the hottest we can get on the boat. We're on the dock and on shore power, so that works out really well. And I'm going to put about 1/3 of this in here. Our tanks are 12 gallons, so that's about 1/3. Yeah, that's about right. All right, I think that's probably enough. Let's head down to the head down there and we'll start pouring this in. Now at this point we still need to fill the tank up all the way, because if it just goes part way up with what's in there right now, it will just do obviously up to that level. So we got to fill it all the way up, which is going to dilute it a little bit, which is kind of a bummer, but we're going to let it sit in here for quite a while. The problem is, because the tank's kind of dirty, it's hard for me to tell if it's actually full. So I'm going to have to kind of watch it carefully and make sure that it isn't going to overflow. Oh, it's up there a little ways. It's right about here-ish, I can tell from the heat. So we just need to add a few more flushes. Well, that's pretty much it for the install of the SCAD system. I think this system's going to work. It's already reading some stuff. Let's see. You know what? We can check that out. Let's go see what this tank level looks like. So this is the port forward poos. Let's go check that out. Oh, looks like we have a muffin up here. Sitting up here. This is his favorite place to hang out. All right, so let's look. Okay, well, look at this. So we've got our port poo, and it says we're at 75%, and I would say we're pretty close to that. That might be a little bit high, but it's great that that is actually receiving and doing its thing. So remember before it said 0, so there we go. Well, at any rate, that's the installation of the SCAD water sensors and used on the poo tanks, on the black water tanks. Let me know what you think. Any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down below and I'll get right to them. I hope you enjoyed the episode. We do lots of these sort of how-tos and upgradey videos and things on our catamaran. So, all right, well, thanks again for watching. As always, a very special thank you to our Patreon supporters. Until next time, safe travels. Bye.